Let me just tell you quickly how we're going to give ourselves, go through the evening. We're each going to take a subject area, and Miss Blomgren is going to talk about the changing child first. Then we're going to see some pictures. Then we're going to hear a little bit about cosmic education, which was Dr. Montessori's big idea for the elementary child, from Miss Jantz. And then we'll see a few more pictures, and then Mr. Brown's going to give us a wrap up on some practicalities and a little bit about the guide's cosmic role in all of that as well. So that's sort of an overview of what we'll do. And just to be mindful of everyone's time, it shouldn't take, we were trying to finish by 7:10. So it's not super long, but we did want to have a chance to talk. Let's start with Ms. Blomgren. Who's that changing child in the second plane of development? So.
Hi. So around the age of 6, somewhere at that point, there's this big transformation of the child as they transition from the first plane, which is birth through primary, into the second plane, which encompasses all 6 of the elementary years. Even though we break them up into 2 groups at Butler, it really is considered one sort of cohesive time of their life. And this transformation that they do, moving from primary to elementary, is as transformative as what a caterpillar does to become a butterfly. It really is this big change in the type of person that they are. And it's really fun. It's really beautiful to see. I think that the second plane child is an absolute marvel. And watching that transition is one of my favorite parts about being the lower elementary guide in that role. And so Maria Montessori sort of asserted that one of the child's most important jobs is to build themselves, to create the person that they are going to be. And a huge amount of foundational work for that is done in the primary and earlier, birth to 3. And in lower elementary, we get to be an active part of that process as they do that work. And as they kind of expand upon that really important foundation that has already been laid. And something that's really cool about a second plane child is they want to know how and why things work the way they do. And when they ask the question why, they mean it. They really want to know why. And they'll go in as deep as they're interested in it. One of my very first weeks with a brand new 6-year-old who had just arrived to me, it was maybe the second day of school, and she came to me and said, "Miss Blomgren, who were the first humans?" This is one of the first things that she wanted to know, right? Who, like, where did humanity start? Where do we come from? What does this look like? And that was indicative of the type of person she was. She's asked big questions for as long as I've known her, but that's also true of just that second plane child in general. There is this big period of stability and intellectual exploration, and something that Maria Montessori called the reasoning mind, which is basically the ability to think critically, to reason, and to sort of solidify that ability. It's not that a first plane child can't reason, but they're building upon that in a way that's so rich that it feels almost brand new sometimes. And it's also a quest for the invisible. What is underneath? How does it work? What lies beyond, right? What is inside this bug that I found? Or let's tear this flower apart and get in there. Or like there's a lot of this type of exploration that happens. And with all of this, they have this just immense intellectual power. They love to do big work. And this means work that takes up literally half the classroom. I have some huge timelines being made. You have to be careful where you walk sometimes. They have 3 children with these huge pieces of paper and they're just building. I have a timeline of all the presidents happening right now, all 46. And then I have a snow leopard's entire lifespan being made by someone else, right? It's just they take up a lot of space. And then also taking up space in the mind. We're doing powers of numbers right now too. What does it mean to have 2 to the 7th power? What does that look like, right? And so there are so many different things that they can discover and that they're led through. And part of that exploration through the invisible is also imagination, which is a very powerful tool for learning in lower elementary and in elementary in general. The idea of the imagination for history or for even in math. I mean, there's so many things you have to imagine, right? With math, the million, right? So we can show you what a million pieces looks like. But after a while, you have to just have that in your mind, right? You have to be able to imagine what that million means and kind of expand upon it. There are also some pretty important psychological changes that are happening around this time. One of the biggest ones is the development of the conscience, the sense of right and wrong, of what is acceptable in society, what is not acceptable. What does it mean to be, what is a morality, right? What does it mean to have a sense of morality for yourself? And there's this huge emphasis on fairness and justice, right? What is fair for me in the classroom? What is fair for the other students in the classroom? And what does that look like for communication in the classroom, for negotiation in the classroom? Because there is a lot of that, right? Who am I as a person compared to the people who are around me in this same space? And how do we treat each other, right? What is the compassionate way to be a human? Marie Montessori talked so much about how education for peace is what her goal was, right? You educate the child to lead to world peace. That was kind of her big dream. And so a lot of that is kind of developed here in that compassion and a sense of who we admire and who we follow. And I think that was my 5 minutes. So I'm going to stop because I could go on for a while, but I hope that gives a bit of a rundown as to the kind of person that we are talking about as we start to explore that second plane child.
Thank you, Rainey. That was beautiful. I think one thing that I wanted to say about that is also the elementary child that we strive to keep our mind on is the enthusiasm that the child has for work that is meaningful and purposeful work for them. So keeping that enthusiasm and making sure that that's an important part of their learning experience is very, very important to the growth of the child, right? We historically, we think, oh, they have so much work, they have this, they have that. They don't think of it like that. When they're really following something that they're enthusiastic about or something that they're passionate about, they think of it as a joyful learning experience, something they're proud of, and they want to do more and more. And that's where you get to that big work, right? I think Natasha's going to give us the tech on, hopefully we'll get to see some pictures. We're pretending we're observing now. And this is the part where you would be observing and drinking coffee, but we can't make that happen right now. So we're just going to show you some beautiful pictures of the classroom. And if there's something that strikes you or you want to bring up, feel free to hold on to that thought and come back to us. Quest. These are outdoor classrooms. Working from home, I love that. Beautiful. Gregario, like working in groups. Nice. Multiples of 7. I guess when you think you get about halfway. That's the river model, looking at how the parts of a river and how they work. Biography day. This is one of the timeline of human beings. It's the black strip. How long has it taken for the earth to be created? Ooh, that was pretty. Nice. Thank you. Rainey, what was the red one, Rainey? What was the white paper with the red border that they were doing?
That's the very beginning of the timeline of the presidents.
Ah, nice. Thank you for that. Now we're going to hear a little bit from Miss Jantz, who's going to give us a little picture into cosmic education, and then we'll see a few more pictures.
All right, hi everyone. So cosmic education is this really huge subject, so I'm going to have to sort of quickly jump through some of these topics, but I'm happy to talk about them again later if anyone's interested. So cosmic education is really this foundational philosophy that Maria Montessori modeled all of the planes of development, not just the elementary plane on, but I'm really going to talk about it in the context of elementary today. And in that context of the second plane child who is got this huge intellect, all of these questions about who they, not just who they are, the primary child is figuring out who they are, but the elementary child is figuring out who they are in the context of the universe. And that is the way that we're looking at cosmic education for the elementary child. They're really intellectual, they're really social, and they want to understand what that means in relationship to their classroom environment, but also to this larger environment. And so we do a couple of different things in the elementary classroom to meet that need. One of the first ways that we start in the beginning of the year is by telling these great stories. There's 5 that are normally done in the lower elementary classroom. There is a 6th, but we usually do that for upper, which is more about the human body. But the first story we tell in the first day of every elementary classroom year is the story of how the Earth was formed, going all the way back in time, the beginning of the universe and the formation of the planets. And we have some great science demonstrations. It's a big interactive special event, and they look forward to it every year, even if they have seen it the year before. They're like, oh, is it Volcano Day? We're gonna see the volcano demonstration, which goes along.
I want to interrupt there. I interviewed a new family, and he was a Montessori graduate, and that was all he was talking about. I can remember when I was young, I went to the elementary and they did the volcano, and he's, it was so funny to see his enthusiasm.
And then over the next couple of weeks, we spend some time with that. We let them ask those big questions about the Earth, and they study those things that particularly interest them. We get them asking big questions, what is the Earth's mantle like, or the layers of the Earth, or how do the elements, how does heat rise and cool things cool and or shrink, sorry. And so they're starting to get that picture, and then we move on to, okay, when did life come to this planet? In our second grade story, we talk about how life developed on the Earth, and then eventually we move to this third grade story about how humans developed on the Earth. And then fourth grade story, we are talking about how humans came to invent language. And so and then the fifth one, we're talking about how humans came to invent numbers. And so even before we get to the procedures of doing addition in the classroom or multiplication, like we're asking that question of, why do we even have numbers? Why do we even have letters?
What do we need this for?
That's the big question that the child at this age is interested in, not just, it's not that it's, okay, 2 + 2 = 4, but what does that mean? What does that mean to me? What does that mean to, how am I going to use this? How have humans used this? And so we create this bigger brushstroke to lay the foundation for those lessons that we're going to give on the very specifics of nomenclature or language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whoops. I don't know what happened there. Did she disappear in your screen?
She did. I think maybe her internet died somehow.
That might have, yeah.
Why don't I go ahead and show the next section of the slideshow, and then when she comes back in, she can carry on.
Great. Nice. It's a fractions lesson. I'm sorry, division. can't quite see that, but it's equivalence material, iron equivalence material. What are they doing there, Rainey?
So sorry, guys. My computer crashed right in the middle of talking.
That's all right. We're doing the pictures, and then you can summarize after we go through the pictures.
Okay, sorry. I know I'm probably going over my 3 minutes already anyway.
That's beautiful. Layers of the earth.
Checkerboard.
Yeah.
Right. For parents to hear about checkerboard all the time.
That's what that was.
Mhm.
Timeline, addition, with the snake game, working with their bodies, working with each other. The stamp game, and we use that for addition and subtraction and multiplication and division. And I'm not sure.
There's the volcano.
It's a mini one, right? Multiples of numbers. Looks like factors. Multiples of 8. Some science. What's he doing there, Mr. Brown? Of course, handwork. And this is, looks like
Area,
multiplication. No, it's multiplication on the graph paper. Yeah, and here's group addition starting out. From solid, liquid, gas, and a frog. Yay.
Thank you, Miss Baradia, for putting that together for us.
That was wonderful, Mrs. Baradia. Thank you. I think I wanted to say just a few other things about cosmic education. And one of the Dr. Montessori's big ideas was that you have a child who has certain kinds of characteristics, and the environment of the classroom works to use the characteristics of the child in that plane of development and reach them through those kinds of things. So the reason for the charts is that they have a big sense of abstraction and they like big impressions. And so you're using the impressionistic charts to give an idea of something that they can hold on to visually rather than just words. And that there are concrete experiences with many things when they're younger, so that they can actually hold something in their hand and then move slowly into an abstraction on it. And the other piece of cosmic education is that we try to move towards the idea of everything being interdependent on one another, so that we're not teaching things in isolation, where we might teach something about Pythagoras and who his followers were and what time he lived and what was going on in the world at that time. And then one of the big ideas that he came up with, and then there's a plate which you can manipulate that introduces the Pythagorean theorem. And then that's divided out into several sections. I'm giving you just an example of how those things might show the interconnectedness of one thing to another. And that's another piece that the Montessori curriculum strives to do, is to say that it doesn't happen in isolation. There's a reason why someone invented this, why someone thought about this. And I wonder what you're going to be thinking about. I wonder what, is coming next for you. So they're beginning to think about how they're connected to the people that came before them, and developing a sense of gratitude for what those humans did in their time before us, so that they can begin to think about what their role might be. Let's see, Mr. Brown.
I got my computer back up, by the way.
Oh, good. Hi. Do you want to keep going? Did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was going to touch on what you had just talked about, and I just wanted to say that that interdependency is not just in the areas of the classroom being interdependent, but that the children begin to acknowledge that they are independent with the ecosystem and with other humans across the world. And that there's a lot of lessons, that tie in with that. So we look at where does food come from? Okay, we have the farmer that makes the food in the grocery store, but we also have the person who made the farmer's tools, and the person who has to sell the food, and the person who has to drive the food. You know, and we look at this, there's a beautiful lesson that's just this huge web of people connected in different jobs. And I think that helps to develop their empathy and their compassion. And they're in this sense of, they're in this phase where they're looking at justice. And it's important that they're learning to care for humans that they are not going to meet, you know, whether that's through time, the humans who built things before them, or the human that is living hundreds of miles from them that they're dependent on in some way in the society that we've built. And then I was going to just segue into one of the other things they do in the elementary to expand their environment is going out. And I would let Mr. Brown talk a little bit more about this. This is where the children plan their own field trips to explore. And obviously with coronavirus this year, it's not something we've been able to do, but hopefully next year, you know, when a children is doing independent research or getting a lesson on the early humans and the timeline, they can then plan with a few of their friends, get a parent chaperone, and go take a self-guided field trip to the museum to look at early humans or whatever they're interested. We've had some really amazing variety in going out. But yeah, I'll let Mr. Brown talk more about that and some of the practical sort of things that we do in the elementary classroom to support the child.
Hi, Mr. Brown.
Thank you. Yep. So here we are. I'm so, lucky to be meeting with you all. I just want to summarize a few things and hopefully answer maybe some questions you might have ahead of time about the how. How do we provide cosmic education? How do we foster cosmic education in our elementary program at Butler? And, I have some notes here, and something I'm also going to talk about is what we've learned this year specifically. This is my 7th year teaching. And what have I learned and done differently this year? Well, a lot. And we, first and foremost in cosmic education have to respond to the changes of the child. So this child, this 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old child is physically different. We have bigger chairs, bigger tables, taller shelves, bigger manipulative materials. We have a physically different environment than the children's house, the preschool, the primary environment that our primary guides are trained specifically to teach in. Meanwhile, Rainey and I and Anna and Mrs. Manick and Miss Brady, we all have a separate specific training to teach children with the elementary materials that Dr. Montessori designed for us. So our environment, our physical environment must be changed to meet the child's changes. Also as adults, like I said, our training, we have to change. When I was coming out of undergrad, I wasn't prepared to be, leading a Montessori independent, kind of more open, mixed age environment, right? So we underwent training and then had our practical teaching experience. And now here we are, right? And Dr. Maria, in our lectures, she basically explained that the children's house is not adequate for the elementary child. They have too many questions. And like Miss Jantz said, they're ready to go. They're ready to get out. They need to see the world. And that's what our campus provides them in addition to the classroom. A trainer told us at our staff retreat 2 years ago that we could teach Montessori in the woods, the elementary age specifically, because we could make the materials ourselves by hand. Miss Blomgren had a picture of children making geometry materials by hand in the woods. Miss Jantz had her class out studying the model of a river, right? It's so cool that we could apply Dr. Montessori's philosophy for cosmic education, and we really can here at Butler with our campus. And we do this because the children now at this age have developed imagination, a reasoning mind. They've grown, their brains have physically grown to be able to imagine things. And that's why we kind of have to let them go and research more and find out answers that as, primary children, we're not really teaching them, but here we're giving them that freedom and we're giving them the tools more than the freedom to be able to go discover and make discoveries. So I just kind of want to describe some things about a normal school day, what you might anticipate. Every morning we give children about 3 hours of open work time. It's really integral that they have that time to get their materials out, to get their hands dirty, to dig into a big work like Miss Blomgren had on the floor with paint, and then be able to clean up and not have it interrupt their lunch or whatever specialist that they're going to work with, or whatever extra routine that we have at our school. This year we added the routine of taking a hike every morning. So we give them the 3 hours and then we take our hike, and we push lunch back a little bit in doing so, but we also this year wanted to go outside more because they're wearing masks all day. We wanted to give them fresh air more. Another thing you might anticipate is the group work and the mixed age nature. So these children have group think, and so I give group lessons. Now it's been really challenging to do that because we're trying to stay 6 feet apart. If you walked into our classrooms last year, we would have 9 children grouped up together around one, long rectangular table, just trying to pack them in. If everybody's interested, let's go. Come on. I'm about to teach a big lesson. Come on over. Right. This year, we kind of have to slow that down a little bit, but it doesn't mean we still can't operate like a group and think like a group. And we do. And we go on hikes like a group, and we play outside like a group, and we talk across tables now, which is something we might not have done last year. We might have, encouraged them or invited them to just talk to the person sitting next to you at the table. But now, we're sitting across the room. So
that's going to take some work to go. We're going to be living with that for a few years.
And then we're using Zoom, and I'm teaching group lessons on Zoom at the same time this year. And that's something that's been really unique and challenging, and we'll definitely, adapt and change the needs of the child as those, whether it's the vaccine or whatever we can do to ameliorate that situation. And then we give children 3 years, basically. It's called a 3-year cycle to develop the moral and the responsibility and the leadership that we want to see out of lower elementary children. That comes by being a first year, being a second year, being a third year, or whatever role they want to have in the classroom. We want to give them those 3 years to go in and out of those roles and to make friends and to grow and to master. We want to introduce a lot of things, give them time to master things too. We don't just want to pull the rug out from underneath them right after we introduce them to a new concept. So that's a really key difference, I think. And finally, I wanted to talk about freedom a little bit. Now, I am having a bit of a crisis because of the pandemic with giving too much freedom. So it's something that I'm working on. But I've seen a huge lift off of families when the child can come to school this year. It's given the child freedom. It's given the parents freedom. And I think we all here in this room probably know that how important freedom is. It's the developing of instinct and their own identity. So Miss Jantz was right on the bat about going out. That's a huge part of freedom too, because as a teacher, I will let basically children get a chaperone lined up freely. They work with our school chaperone list, call in advance to a museum, call in advance to a t-shirt printing company if they want to research anything, basically. A rock store in Frederick. I know Mrs. Wilson sends children to the rock store in Frederick, and
glass blowing, my favorite.
Glass blowing, yeah. Go to the farm and see the sheep because they're studying how to make clothing out of wool. So that gives them the chance to acquire new information, and then work towards abstraction of new information by going out and seeking information from professionals, from experts in the world, and then bringing it back to the classroom and presenting that information to their friends is like a research report. So going outs are huge at Butler. I think Butler's tradition of going outs is super strong. I can't wait to bring that back. We do virtual field trips right now. Trust me, I'm exploring every avenue. With the Smithsonian Institute, they're offering countless museum educator Zoom calls that we've signed up for and stuff. But the physical going out will be awesome to see. And then the other thing that we're really loving this year that we're going to keep is the outdoor classrooms. So that in itself is like a mini going out where we can go pick something in the woods and use it to bring it back to the classroom as part of our research. We can collect, things all, 4 seasons. Even right now, we're having a great time outside, and it is cold and wet, but I'm really excited about that. We do have uniforms in the lower L. These are things that help us to focus more on our schoolwork and not, have as many distractions. We have snacks typically around 10 o'clock. That I love that the families provide snacks because especially this year, there's no mixing, there's no touching of food. And then another thing that the children need, I was going to talk about this in terms of Montessori, but they need order. So the uniforms, that's order. Snacks, they always know when it's snack time. They're looking at the clock. They're watching the clock. They're ready to go. The second it's 10 o'clock, they need to know that that's the time they can have snack. And for me, having it at the same time every day is a big lift because I don't have to say, yes, it's snack time. They tell me when it's snack time. And then same with carpool. So carpool is super important. We have a staggered carpool so we don't have too much traffic backup, but it really helps the children get to work at the same time every day when, we come at carpool at the same time and they're in the classroom at the same time. And I just wanted to touch on those practical notes too, but I'm also happy to answer any questions. And Mrs. Manick, I know you might have some more thoughts.
So I want to just give a chance to see if anybody has some specific questions that we can answer tonight around cosmic education and the elementary program and how it all works out. And yeah, so I'll open it to anybody. We can all take turns. If we have a few that we can answer, we'll go for a few more minutes and see if we can answer anybody's questions that are about the curriculum and about how the child matures and about, yeah, anything that you might have on your mind. I'm slowly going through and reaching out to everyone just to talk a little bit about where we are for next year. Of course, there's so many unknowns, so those kinds of things are not clear to us. We have not heard from, and I don't expect that we will for a while, about what is possible for re-densifying the classes and how that will come about. And I'm sure that's a big question on everyone's mind. But yeah, just trying to get some direct information, a little bit about, a particular friend that your child might have, or what kinds of things are making them feel comfortable, so that we can make sure that we support the transition in a way that's meaningful. And typically in a regular year, our children would go and visit, right? So right now what we've done is we've made these combined classes. So, we hope to be able to have some visiting in the spring, and we just, right now we can't do that. So for those of you who are still in the primary and are moving up, and then some of us are in a different kind of an arrangement this year, just for safety's sake. So yeah, that's what I have. Anybody have any questions?
Looks like Marissa has a question.
Marissa, I see you.
Sorry, I'm just curious, and this may be premature, as to, so this past year was our first year, so we're not sure. And I know it's a COVID year, so a lot of things may not apply, but as far as the age breakdown for the classes, I think my girls are in a class now of 6 to 8 or 9, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Is that standard? Is that what they may be looking at in the fall, or will it be sort of narrowed down into either, more of a 6, 7 and then 8, 9? How?
As much as we can keep those cycles of the 3 years inside of it. And actually Montessori's thinking on this really was, it's one plane of development, 6 to 12. And when we talk about a period of solidification in the subplanes are 0 and 3, and then the solidifying plane, if you think about your 5-year-old, right, they're sort of more competent and sassy and generally feeling pretty good about the world, right? And then you get to that 6.5, and all of a sudden they're fighting with their friends all the time, they're crying, Johnny doesn't like me, she wasn't nice to me, and that's all because they're changing who they are. And this is the beginning of a subplane that's very messy, and then over time it solidifies again, right? So generally speaking, we're kind of in that 6 to 9 range, but there are always children that fall on either end of that, depending upon what we together think is going to be what that child needs and what we think will be supporting their development. So that solidification for them is really the 5th or 6th grader, right? And if you would come look in the upper elementary, you'd see, nothing less than 18 bosses going around, right? Because it's a much more solidified kind of period. And I just want to say, and we all know what happens after that, right? But you have to remember it in context. It's a subplane. What is this, 13 to 15 or 12 to 16? It's different for every human, but that's a messy period again, right? The beginning of adolescence, a massively changing body, and your hormones are coming in, they're very emotional again, and then a solidification, right? That's 15 to 18. And they by the time they're ready to go to college, they feel pretty good about themselves. They've identified who they are, what they're thinking about, and pretty independent. And then we all know that when some students go to college, and that's 18 to 21 or 18 to 24 is really how Montessori saw it. And that's important to remember, because 18, 19, 20, 21, that can be a messy subplane, right? Speaking from experience. I mean, that's the time that they do some pretty silly, dumb things. And you think and hope that they're well past it, but come to find out, things happen and you're like, really? Okay. Why would they do that at college? They never did that at home, and that's a messy subplane. And then solidification. Who am I? What is my cosmic task? What do I want to do? And that's 20 to 24, right? So for us in that cohort, typically it's 6 to 9, but because we had to rearrange for COVID based upon what we had for teachers and students, I made the decision that I think was best for those students. And I think, pretty much I feel like that experiment's going mostly very well for the younger 5s in the classroom. We don't, as Mr. Brown said, we don't have the freedoms we had in a regular kind of environment. So that I think is also supporting the students, and the classes are quite small. So that answer it?
Yeah. Yes. I just didn't know, for my girls, it has been good having the older kids as teachers and as sort of inspiration.
The group thinking. She's
Yeah.
thinking that? Oh.
Yes. And so I was hoping that we wouldn't lose that, going forward when classes get larger, that, maybe that we would lose their perspective of the older children, in a class. So I just wanted to know how you were thinking going forward in this, if that was, what normally happens is that you have the age range, which I thought so, but
Yeah.
again, because of COVID,
Right.
who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Right.
Yeah. I mean, typically that would be covering what we would generally call first, second, and third grade, right? Generally, but that's not quite how we're arranged right now. So we just tried to give some youngers, some middles, and some olders as best we could based upon the seats, because we are at capacity based on COVID, but of course we're not at our regular capacity. And just in full transparency, I don't think that we're going to be able to go back to what I would have considered our regular full capacity, because Montessori, it's not an idea we talked about tonight, but there's a whole nother idea called normalization. And classrooms go through cycles of work in order to have the normalized child, the healthy child who's independent and free and able to make healthy choices and, really use their work period in a way that feels meaningful and useful to both the teacher and the student and the parents and society, right? So there are a lot of factors that go into that. But right now, because we've had this experience that we've all had, we have to revisit that. So I think that it's going to take some time for both the families and the children and the teachers and assistants to feel like they can work towards feeling normal again, right? Yeah. I mean, we have some children like, they need to be near a wall because they're anxious about anyone getting in their space, right? So there are going to be things that we're going to uncover together and work on together. So this is why I think it's going to take some time to go back to a class size that we might normally call a normalized Montessori classroom. Yeah. Anybody else?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
In a normal world, when a student would enter this next phase, would they stay with that teacher for the next 3 years as you have it blocked out, or do they move between teachers within that 3-year block, if I understand it right?
So in an ideal world, you would have your guide in the lower elementary, and you would stay with that guide, right? And that would be the ideal. And sometimes we can produce it, and other times all kinds of things happen in life and we can't produce it.
Sure.
What I can tell you about that is that all of our teachers are Association Montessori International trained, so they all have the same training. We're not a mixed, we're an AMI school, and that helps us all have the same kind of foundational experiences going on in a classroom.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And what is, I know that the normalization will take time, but in a non-COVID world, what is the typical class size for the lower groups?
For us, it should be somewhere in the range of 24 to 26.
Okay.
Sometimes depending upon what you have in the classroom, 22 is okay too, but in order for us, and they obviously have, in order for us to keep our certification, they've had to readdress all of this in terms of AMI's recognition. That's the number that they're looking for, because we all see this in our classrooms, but our children are more dependent, not less, not there. We want them to be independent because we've gone through this situation all together. There are many things that we need to stifle, right? Movement being the top one. And that is going to affect, it's going to affect the classrooms for sure. So I'm thinking that we're going to be on the smaller side for a while we regroup on that. And I'm sure that there'll be conversations in terms of recognition as well. So.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. I know I won't go back to that. And it's very hard to go from 12 to 24. You cannot really do that. It's just going to be too much disruption for everyone, too much to work through. Yeah. Anybody else?
I would have a question about the extended care. I know that I think it's probably also because of COVID right now. Jonathan is usually the only kid in extended care in his group, and I feel really bad. We can't really change it right now.
Right.
So what would be like the normal way? I assume you usually put classes together in the afternoon and they basically play and run around and well, can enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I've been trying to take Jonathan as much as I can in the fall down to the creek or for a walk or up to see the chickens because yeah, they cannot be together. So we're not mixing the pods unless it's a sibling pod. And everyone says that, but you're not alone because in every classroom by the end of the day, there's usually one or two that are by themselves. And we, you know, of course, it's not fun for them and it's not fun for us either, right? It's like very hard on the children and everybody's working to make it as entertaining as possible. But yeah, on the other side, in the other building, I think there's one in each space really, because they're not in the same pods. So in regular extended day, they all come to one extended day place and they would have, you know, dinner where they invite their parents to come for pizza on Thursday at 5:30 because everyone didn't go home until 6 o'clock, many of them, right? And it was like a second sibling group for them and really great for children who live in only children families because this is where they're getting a lot of their social time, where it's a little unstructured in their socialization and they develop really pretty deep relationships with the siblings that they've grown up with. So I think it's a really great, normally a very lovely program. And I'm sorry, but that's kind of where we are right now.
I mean, we know that, so no worries about that. I just wanted to ask what it should look like in.
Oh yeah, they all play. They have lots of activities they do together. They plan, you know, to invite their parents for meals and
pumpkin carving, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pumpkin carving, that's one of their favorites. Mm-hmm.
All of the sort of traditional after school fun things that they do. Lots of fun. Anybody else? Okay, it's about 10 after, so I'm 11 minutes past. So I'm going to let everyone say goodnight. And I'm in the office every day, and I'd love to hear from you. I prefer a phone call. If you have some questions, I'd really rather talk in person than an email. But if you need a scheduled time, you can shoot me an email and say, Laura, I'm available at this time to talk. And that's a great way to let me know what's a good time for you if you have individual questions. And this time of year, I try to go around to everybody and have a chat. So I'm sometimes just calling you just to have a nice chat, not because anything's going particularly, you know, not because anything's challenging, just to say hey. And I do see your children every day. I try to get, you know, onto the playground and into the rooms as much as I can from the outside and get a feel from the teachers about what everyone's doing. So yeah, I'm here to help. I want to help you in whatever way I can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon in person, I hope.
Thank you.